3, 2, 1. Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Warships Legends. My name is Spartan Elite 43 and tonight we are starting a new series on the channel. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, Spartan, how can you start a new series in a game that you've been playing since the inception of the game? Well, I'll tell you. So, I get a lot of requests, and I mean a lot of requests on how to play ships, or what I can't do anything in this ship, can you help me? Or what's your build on this ship? So I'm going to start a series, and this will go to other nations as well. It's not just going to be the Americans. I am going to focus on a line of ships and play every single ship in that line and show my builds for the ships as well as my technique of how I play the ship. Now, this isn't to say that everybody should play the ship the same way. Alright? This is just my opinion on how I like to play ships. And I generally am pretty good in battleships. So, yeah, let's get into this. First off, we're starting out with the American Tier 3, the Wyoming. So, let's get into it. First of all, we're going to go to our commander, William Sims. We are running Andrew Cunningham and Paolo DeRevel. These are all standard commanders that anybody can pick up. And if you do not have William Sims as your American battleship commander, unless you're running the Massachusetts, you're doing it wrong. Just throwing that out there. Okay? You should never build an American tank build that is not the Massachusetts. Any other ship, you should have William Sims as the commander. Now, we are running flammable cannoneer, gyrating drill bits, marksmanship, and emergency specialist with the will to rebuild skill. Now, one thing I should mention, my commander is very, very good. It is maxed out with 16 levels, and it is a legendary 3. So your mileage may vary, but you still want to work towards this end goal of having a really good William Sims for your American battleships. Okay? Now, because of this series, I want to showcase not just amazing damage games, okay? That's not what this series is about. This series is about showing the fundamentals of how anybody can get in these ships and be successful. And that's what we're going to do. Alright, so, upgrades and loadout. Well, there's not a whole lot of upgrades at low tiers. We get aiming systems, we don't get aiming systems mod 1, we get main battery mod 2. Because the Americans get the ultimate in-game skill of having the artillery plotting room, you do not get, unlike every other nation, you do not get aiming systems mod 1 on your battleships. So for the entire line, up until you get the Iowa, you will not have aiming systems mod 1, okay? Which means that your accuracy is going to be a bit sus at times. But it's okay. I'm going to tell you a way to get around it. Now, we're using main battery mod 2 on this one, which the bad thing is the main battery reload time is reduced by 5%, or increased by 5%, sorry. But the main battery traverse speed is decreased. So you get a bonus there, even though you do lose a little bit on the main battery reload. Alright? We are fully upgraded. That is the other thing I want to keep in mind. All of my ships are fully upgraded when I play them. I do not like playing ships that are you know, not upgraded fully. Now, I understand that if it's your first playthrough, you're probably going to have to play with ships that aren't upgraded. So keep that in mind. Your stats may vary. Okay? At least until you get them fully upgraded. Alright, so loadout. I don't run any boosters on low tier ships at all. Any boosters whatsoever. Now, I can understand people wanting to run boosters early on, but trust me, it is not necessary. You should not be running boosters early on. And the reason for that is, you want to save those boosters for later on when they're going to be the most useful. Especially your epic battle boosters, which is over here. You can convert these, obviously. So if we convert the tier 1 booster, and then convert the tier 2 booster, we saved it, and we've got 133 epic battle boosters. You want to save these until you're playing high tiers. And by high tiers, I mean tier 7. You can probably make an argument for playing them in tier 6, especially if it's your first playthrough and you don't have the silver and stuff, but you definitely want to save those. Now, your credit boosters. Your credit boosters, same deal. You do not want to be running these until later on. Tier 5, tier 6 minimum, and that is solely to help you get the cash to get to the next tier, okay? So keep that in mind. If you've got premium ships at tier 5 and tier 6, run a credit booster with them to get that maximum amount of silver each and every match, okay? Because it's percentage based, right? You're increasing the credits by 40%. So if you're already increasing if you're increasing a tech tree ship by 40%, you just get a flat 40% bonus over the normal amount of silver. However, if you're in a premium ship, you earn more credits per battle anyway. So you're getting 40% of the boosted credits. So you're getting 40% plus the extra credits that you get with a premium. So keep that in mind. All right. Now, the flag, we're running the community contributor flag and camo. I always try to run camos on my ships. This does two things, especially running camos that give you 4.5% detectability and 4.5 fire dispersion. If you do not have camos that give you the 4.5 detectability, look for the camos that give you the 4.5 incoming fire dispersion for battleships. Okay, the detectability is not really that big a deal on a battleship, especially early on. However, getting that extra fire dispersion can save your life, quite literally. So, Type 2 camos come in clutch for battleship players. Okay, keep that in mind. Alright, so let's move on to the stats. Survivability. You have 44,940 hit points. You have 13 to 305 millimeter armor. We'll go over what all this means in a second. Torpedo damage reduction is 16%. One thing that you will note, with the exception of the Alabama and the Massachusetts, the American battleships do not have particularly good torpedo damage reduction. So keep that in mind. You do not want to be taking torpedoes. Alright? Artillery. You have 12 305 millimeter guns. So you start this line off with a lot of guns. They're pretty small. They're 305, but they're at least comparable to most of the ships in the line or in the competition. All right. So firing range 14.9 kilometers. Not the best, but not the worst, I believe. Reload is 30.2 seconds with this build, which is not bad. Early on, you gotta consider this is early on. So we're right at 30 seconds already. 180-degree turn time is 32.6 seconds. The HE shell maximum damage 4,200 with a 23% chance to set fires. AP shell maximum damage is 9,130. The only time you're going to see that 9,130 for a single shell is when you citadel an enemy ship. Okay, you will never see 9,130 damage on a normal armor penetration round unless you citadel the enemy. Secondary armament, you have 6 127mm Mark 7s that reach out to 3.5 kilometers and reload in 7 seconds. They have a maximum HE shell damage of 1,800 and they have a 6% chance to set fires. AA defense, you have 14 12.7mm Browning M2s. They do 50 average damage per second and they have a 1.2 kilometer firing range. You also have 24 28mm Mark II Mod 2s that do 41 damage per second, reach out to 3.1 kilometers. Then you have 76.2mm gun, Mark 22 Mod 2 guns that you have that do. You have 8 of them. Sorry, I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. Reading ahead. Average damage per second is 22, and the firing range is 3.5 kilometers. Okay, maneuverability. Now, this is a double-edged sword, but I'm going to tell you that the maneuverability of the American battleships is second to I don't think it's actually second to any. I could be wrong here, but they are some of the best turning ships until you get to the Iowa in the game. Like, as far as the battleships go, okay? Just make it very clear. But anyway, maximum speed, not good. And this is due to the Americans having, not very good boiler slash engine power to weight, and then or to displacement, and then on top of that, terrible hull forms. Okay, in terms of speed through the water until you get to the Iowa. Okay, the Americans did not have any like. They didn't use they used conventional designs for their battleship hulls until the Iowa class was being designed, when they actually went out and they got with some guys that were doing like the yachts and stuff, the speed large speed vessels and stuff. That's when they got into the speed, and that's when they developed the low pressure boiler to augment the high pressure boiler that was already being used, and that's why the Iowa ended up being the fastest battleship ever created. But these other ships that I'm going to show you in the line before the Iowa all have incredible turning for battleships. All of them. Every single one of them. Now, the bad news is they're very, very slow. The maximum speed of the Wyoming is 18.5 knots. The turning circle radius is 590 meters, which is fantastic for a battleship. Fantastic. Rudder shift time's only 13.9 seconds. Now, that's still pretty long, but it's a battleship, and that's not bad. Concealment system, or the concealment, you're sneaky early on, but that's mainly due to the fact that it's a low-tier match, and you're going to end up being spotted pretty early in the match anyway. 11.9 kilometers by sea, 10 kilometers by air, 2 is always guaranteed, and 9.5 kilometers in smoke. Now, what is guaranteed detectability? Guaranteed detectability means if you get within 2 kilometers of any ship, you will spot it and they will spot you. And that doesn't mean like out and obviously if you can see them, if you have line of sight on them, you're going to spot them regardless because you'll spot them way sooner. But if there's an island between you and you get within 2 kilometers, you will proxy spot them, which helps your team get crossfires potentially. Okay. Let's look at the armor. Alright, so the armor early on is nothing really special, okay? You have 19 millimeters of armor plating. And if I do the math real quick, I can tell you exactly what it takes to overmatch this ship. So let's just go ahead and do that real quick. We have 19 millimeters, and then you multiply that by the 14.3. It's always going to be 14.3. So anything with guns that are 271.7 millimeters or larger can overmatch your bow. Okay, this is handy to know and will actually come in handy in the match coming up. Okay, so you have the ability to overmatch your own armor. So if you come up against another Wyoming, you can literally, if they are bow tanking, you shoot straight through the bow of these ships. Alright, so let's get rid of all the other armor that we don't really care about and look at the armored citadel of the ship. This is the absolute glory shot, okay? Now you will notice that it is right at the waterline, okay? There may be spots where it's slightly above, but it's for the most part at or below the waterline. You can see it's a very large area. So the way to citadel these ships is either with plunging fire coming in at an angle and hitting the deck, or the upper side plating. You don't want to be hitting the waterline all the time, okay? Or through this front. You see how this goes with the hull? Obviously, it's angled, okay? Because it's angled like that, you can get penetrations into that citadel at angles like this. Like, when the ship is facing you like this, you can punch through that armor, because we already know that we can overmatch, right? You can punch through that armor and into that citadel much easier, even when they're over or slightly angled. So keep that in mind. What you want to avoid is hitting the armored belt. Okay, that torpedo bulge that you see on the sides of the ship. There isn't really much of one here, but you can slightly see a bulge there at the waterline. You want to avoid hitting that at mid-ship if they are not flat broadside. If they're flat broadside, go for it, because you'll go through and you're going to do some serious damage. But if they're angled, you want to hit towards the bow, and you want to make sure that you're aiming towards that waterline again, and you will get very, very good results. You'll see what I'm talking about in the match we're coming up. All right, so it is agile, and this is what we already talked about. The American battleships are very, very agile until you get to the island. They turn very well, but they are slow. We already talked about that. Okay, so the Wyoming, a typical battleship of the first generation in the United States Navy, the ship was very well balanced for her time. In contrast to her predecessors, the ship was armed with numerous main battery guns with a longer firing range. Turbine-driven propulsion could produce quite a decent speed for a dreadnought. But again, it is a dreadnought. 18.5 knots is all you're going to get, especially considering we're using the, is it flammable cannoneer or gyrating drill? I think it's gyrating drill bits that drops your maximum speed. But there were 2 of them in the series, and she entered service in 1912. So let's take a look at it, as always. I like to swing around the ship and just take a look at the ship, which, honestly, it's an American battleship, and it's fantastic. I love seeing the casemate guns. I love seeing all of the main batteries. Like, the ship is a lot of fun to play with this many guns early in the game. Like, it is a lot of fun. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get into the gameplay. So, alrighty, so we are in the Wyoming, and we're on one of the low-tier maps, the Archipelago. And so we're going to push straight across our side. One of the things that I always try to tell people is win your side, right? Or at least hold your side. And that will allow your team effort. Now, as you can see, there's only 3 of us that spawn over here. There's a destroyer, a battleship, and a cruiser, which is actually fantastic because that allows pretty much the maximum versatility on this side of the map. You've got one of everything. So we are going to push straight up and engage whatever's on this side. Now, there's a few things that I need to tell you guys about the Wyoming. First of all, its accuracy sucks. All right, let's just get this out of the way. Its accuracy does suck. And this is with an American, like, high-tier Sims build, okay? You're not going to get the best accuracy out of this thing. However, when it does hit, it's fantastic. But one of the things that you're going to want to do is try to close the distance and brawl. Now, the reason I say this is because of the weak armor all around this ship. Now, it is able to fight a lot of things. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you should cower at the back or anything like that. We're going to get up close, and we're going to showcase this ship in a fight, especially against two battleships. Now, one of the things that I do at the beginning of every match, you'll notice, is I pull open the large map. I hit the back button on the Xbox. I'm sure it's select on the PlayStation. You just pull open the map screen that shows the teams. And I look at the team compositions. I don't care who's in the match, okay? I'm not looking at people. I'm looking at the composition of the enemy team to know what ships I'm up against. And because of that, I knew that these 2 guys that are spawned out ahead of me are in a division, and they're both in battleships. But you guys will notice pretty quickly that one of these guys isn't moving. I don't know if he spawned in late or if he got disconnected or what, but that guy's not going to play initially. And that's going to allow me to focus down this Kaiser. Okay? There is an enemy Izyaslav out there we've got to keep our eye on, but he's quite a ways away, so we shouldn't have to worry. The low-tier destroyers aren't as big a threat, with the exception of the Japanese. Okay, so keep that in mind. But most of the low-tier destroyers have to get extremely close to torp you, and you can usually gun them down before that happens. But Kaiser turns out, and this is where you're going to see some of that accuracy I was talking about. We get 2 full penetrations for 6,000 damage, most of those shells missing. Now, you'll see that I'm already starting the Dreadnought Shuffle. That's what I call it. You might call it a waggle, you might call it whatever you want to call it. I personally call this the Dreadnought Shuffle. Have since the beginning. What you do is you swing out and you fire a full salvo when you're not going to be shot, okay? That is the key. And then as soon as you fire your shot, you start turning back in to bow tank the enemy threat. Now, again, we already know that the bow on this thing can be overmatched by anything above 270 millimeters. And that is pretty much every battleship at this tier. So, we want to make sure that we're not going full bow in at enemies, but leaving a little bit of the side. And what that does, it allows the enemy to get comfortable thinking they're going to get that ultimate citadel. And here I tried to lob the island. I knew the game told me I couldn't, but I thought maybe I could get between the 2 peaks. If you didn't know, there is a delay, and the mountain icon that tells you you're going to hit the ground is solely based on like the center of your ship. So your front guns may be able to get over that, your rear guns may be able to get over that, but unless both sets can go over it, it's not going to disappear. Alright, so the enemy battleship rushed forward, took a lot of damage doing it, but he managed to kill our destroyer. But he lost his own life in the process. And that's going to allow me to focus the enemy Arkansas, which has woken up. Now, the Arkansas is interesting and unique solely due to the fact that it has the ability to add artillery plotting room at tier 3, which is ridiculous. But if he's going to give me shots like this, I'm going to take him. We got 5 hits that time out of the 12. He's not even looking at us. Like, the guy is not looking at us currently. But you can see those guns starting to turn, so you can see we're trying to turn in. Now, we've got Izyaslav out here shooting at us. Not that big a deal. You can see we did take a penetration there. Not that, you know, it's not the worst thing. But the main thing is that we don't just give them everything to shoot at. Now, right now, the Arkansas isn't as big a threat to me as this Izyaslav. So we're going to go ahead and try to get rid of this Izyaslav early. We take the shot, 12 shots, and we get four hits with it. So one-third accuracy out of that salvo. Not too shabby. And that should at least make him think twice about coming at us, and it actually does. He turns away to go around the island and go away from us. Now, Arkansas and I are about to get into a close quarters American dreadnought battle. One of the things that we already discussed is if we can shoot towards the front bow at this sort of angle, and we get that waterline shot, we can absolutely citadel him as we hit him for 21,000 damage. Proving, and that was a 7-hit accuracy too. 7 out of 12 rounds just hit the target. That was fantastic accuracy. But again, we're 3 kilometers from the man. But that's the angle that I was talking about. And you can see I'm kind of in the danger zone myself. If he knows this weakness, he could easily citadel me. But you can see where he's shooting at that armored belt. And so now I get a swing out. He just fired his guns at me. Before he gets the rear guns, I'm going to be able to get the shot I want. And again, we wait for a little bit of an opening. And as soon as we can get the shot through that bow side plating, we take the shot and we finish him off. Now, I completely forgot that there was an aircraft carrier here. Now, we had already pinged the guy that was headed towards our base. But I'm not going to rely on my team to try to finish him. I'm actually going to take a shot at him. Any chance you get to remove a destroyer, you need to try to take it. And that is solely due to the fact that if you don't remove him, chances are he's going to kill you at some point. Alright, and this goes all the way up to tier 7. Now here you can see we had the freaking RNG of nightmare. That shot was placed perfectly and should have been a kill shot. They splashed literally all around his ship. They went long, they went short, they went out wide on both sides of his ship. Like, that man was encased in 12 305mm American armor-piercing shells and didn't get touched. And that is just annoying. But that is the accuracy that you can come to expect out of these low-tier battleships, okay? The accuracy does get better as you get higher up, but right now, he's too far away from us, and it's at this point that I'm thinking, oh my god, where's the Izyaslav? I'm still detected. There is an Izyaslav here. We know that. He's not detected, but I am. So I'm thinking Izyaslav. What I fail to realize, there's a freaking carrier right behind me that's detected me, and it's at this point I'm like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot more sense. But yeah, Izyaslav gets spotted. We're going to once again get a chance to shoot a destroyer. We take it. Up over the mountain, the accuracy looks pretty solid, and we get a solid hit out of it. 2 overpins. Now, obviously, overpenetration's not the greatest thing in the world. If you're shooting at a destroyer, maybe try to load the HE. But if you've got AP loaded out of a battleship and you hit a destroyer, it's going to hurt the destroyer because destroyers don't have a lot of health, and even overpins on battleships still take a good chunk of the health. Now, this enemy Hosho out here, I don't know if he just wasn't playing or what, but this man is just sitting here, and so we're going to take advantage of that. The enemy has gotten out of our cap to kill our carrier. So I'm going to end up leaving leaving the enemy cap here. This is probably the wrong move to make. And you can see I'm kind of fighting it in my head that I need to try to sit in the base and shoot the man through the bow. But I know that if I get around the outside a little bit and get a decent angle on the man, I'll be able to remove him much quicker. Because I'll get more hits. And more hits equal more pain. And more chances for citadels So you can see here, still not the greatest angle, but we take the shot on the side of the ship. We get 6,900 damage with 4 penetrations that time. Much more damage because we're hitting more of the ship with more of the shells. And the next shot's going to be able to remove this Hosho regardless of whether we get a Citadel or not, because we're going to get even more shells on the target. But the main thing that you got to remember here is that we probably shouldn't have got out of the base, because you want to guarantee the win. All right, and us getting out of the base allows that destroyer to potentially win this for his team. Luckily for me, it's not that big a deal because he has 2 cruisers right there defending our cap, and so they should be able to kill a single destroyer, especially one that we've already hit. And they do. So hopefully you guys like this. I know that the beginning segment was really long, but there was a lot of information that I want to get out. These videos are going to be targeting the newer players that have no idea what they're doing. So bear with me, guys. If you don't like the beginning segment or you know what you're doing with the beginning, just go ahead and skip to the gameplay if that's what you want to do. But anyway, we get top of the leaderboard. We get 75,000 damage, high caliber, 2 kills, 2 citadels in our first game back in the Wyoming. So let me know what you guys think about this upcoming series. And if you like what I'm doing, punch the like button, leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, I will see you in the next video.